Hi, today in this video, instead of doing an installation, I want to talk about product selection of joint sealants. I've seen some specifications where there's a lot of different categories that are listed, and as I read through the specifications, sometimes I'm asked to review specifications, and I'm kind of confused by all the categories that they've included, especially if you include a category, for example, polyurethane class 25, and then you get to the execution part and there's no application listed for it. If there's no application for the sealant, it shouldn't be in the specification. So I've done some thinking about this with my colleague, and we've come up with 5 main categories that we believe should be used to determine what you need in your joint sealant specification and what you don't in terms of product selection. Now, obviously, there are some execution issues and items, but that's fine. But I'm just talking about product selection in terms of determining what you need in your spec. So, number 1, paintability. First thing out of the gate, do you need this application, this joint sealant, to be paintable? Yes or no? Pretty straightforward. Let me give you, for instance, you've got an application that's brick to brick. You're not painting the brick, so you could use a sealant that either can or cannot be paintable, which would mean silicones could be used in that application because they're not paintable. Conversely, let's say you're doing siding to trim. Do you need it to be paintable? It's like, well, are you going to be painting the siding? If it's pre-finished, maybe you don't. You're going to do a color match, which good luck with that, but do a color match with your sealant and install it, and then don't worry about paintability. But if it's a primed, like a fiber cement, and it has not yet been painted, then you need to make sure that whatever sealant you put in there in that joint is going to be able to accept paint. So that's a defining characteristic right there. Can it be painted or not based on the application or applications that are involved with your project. Number 2, movement class / modulus. So movement class relates to what the capability of the sealant is in terms of being able to expand and contract as a result of encountering differing or varying temperature changes. So for example, a class 25 can move plus or minus 25%. A class 25 can move 35% plus or minus. Class 50 and so forth up to 100/50, which can actually open by design 100% or close 50%. So if we use 1 inch as an example, a class 25 could open 1/4 of an inch because that's 25%, close 1/4 of an inch, or 50% total movement when you add the plus and minus together. At the other end of the spectrum, a class 100/50, if it was a 1 inch wide joint, which many are not, but I'm just using that as a simple example, a 1 inch joint has the capability of opening to 2 inches or closing down to 1/2 inch. So it's got 1.5 inches of total movement capability versus that class 25 sealant only has 1/2 inch of total movement capability. When you get to smaller joints, this becomes more pronounced. Let's say you've got a 1/2 inch wide joint and it's a class 25, that means it can move plus or minus 1/8 inch, which isn't very much. In contrast, class 100/50 on a 1/2 inch joint, that 1/2 inch joint can open 100% to 1 full inch and still be within design parameters, and it can close 50% down to 1/4 inch, so you end up with 3/4 inch of movement, correct? 1/2 inch in expansion and 1/4 inch in compression, 3/4 inch versus 1/4 inch with the class 25. So movement class is important as long as the modulus does not become a factor. There are products that are listing high movement classes, but they have high modulus. If they have high modulus, then you've got an issue because you're putting stress at the bond line when the material stretches. So to refresh, modulus is the resistance to movement. Therefore, low modulus sealants have low resistance to movement, therefore they're highly flexible. Okay? In contrast, a high modulus sealant has high resistance to movement, therefore it's going to be less flexible because it's resisting movement. In a building joint sealant application, you want low modulus sealants because you want to minimize the tension that occurs when that joint opens up due to thermal change, and usually when it opens up, that means it's getting cooler. So you caulked it at 70 degrees, now it's down to 30 degrees, that joint thermally has opened up. There's tension in that joint, and you want to minimize that tension by reducing the modulus. So while you may want to look at your movement class, this is what really drives things. What is the real modulus? So you should be looking at ASTM D412 and modulus at 100%. At 100%, or some people will call it 100% modulus. What is that PSI value when that sealant bead is stretched to 100%? That's important, and more important than the movement class. So if the modulus is lower but the movement class is mediocre, the modulus should rule the day. Okay, let's go to number 3, adhesion. I've got notes here, primer and PAO, and you're wondering what a PAO is, I'll explain in a second. But adhesion can be unprimed, obviously, where they just gun the sealant into the joint. But there's so many different types of substrates, coatings and so forth, which are hard to adhere to. Therefore, there are occasions when you need to prime. In addition, you want to verify that that primer worked. So if you're not sure whether you need primer, you would do an application where you would do a couple feet, say, of a primed surface where you put primer down, allow it to dry or go tack-free, and then install your sealant, allow it to cure, but at the same time, do an unprimed application, allow that to cure, and then when they are fully cured, you're ready to do a PAO, which is a pull adhesion observation, and you're going to try to verify whether or not the unprimed or the primed adhered better. So in some instances, you may do primed and unprimed. Adhesion's basically the same. You notice no differences. Both of them passed. In terms of ASTM C1521, which is kind of the pull test ASTM, method A says you should be able to get 200% or 2 times movement class. So if it's a class 100, you should be able to get 200% movement. If it's class 25, then you're only going to get 50% movement, but you need to get 2 times movement class in extension in order to have passing performance. The other option is that you can do method B, which is you're pulling that sealant tab to cohesive failure, where the sealant tab tears before it pulls away adhesively. Okay, so you've got method A, method B. That is ASTM C1521, methods A and B. Okay, so adhesion to verify, test primed, unprimed, or conduct a sample primed and unprimed and do a pull adhesion observation to verify whether primed or unprimed work better. If the primed works better than the unprimed, then you should be priming. Simple as that. 4th, warranty, duration in years. My feeling is that you should try to get as long a warranty duration as the manufacturer will allow. In many of the cases, I see specifications where they're putting class 25. The product may not even have a proper warranty, or they have a maximum of 5 years. Why specify a 5-year warranty if you can get a 10-year with a higher performing sealant, or even a 20-year? Okay, so think about the duration in years of the warranty as a consideration when you're selecting a product. 5th, and this is the most complicated, the miscellaneous or special uses. So you've gone through these 4 defining characteristics. You get down to miscellaneous, and you say, well, I want to do something like immersion. I want something that can be immersed. Well, first of all, you better understand what immersion really is, because immersion on most sealants does not include chlorine contact. So if you're thinking, oh, this product is immersible, so I can put it in a swimming pool, that's wrong. You need to consider chlorine contact and that type of thing. But if you're going to use these categories, then you have to back off on your warranty requirements, back off on your movement, and probably back off on paintability. You're focusing on, can I get adhesion, and will it be durable? Is it really designed for that application? Another application would be a fluid flashing, a liquid flashing. So liquid flashing materials are basically applied in a very thin application, almost like a coating, a little thicker than a coating. And as a result, they don't need to be as concerned about movement class, but you still need to be worried about adhesion. So you need to verify whether you've got proper adhesion of this material so it's not going to peel off. Paintability is not going to be a factor. Warranty would be a factor. So as I go through some of these other miscellaneous applications, you have to start thinking about what is involved in the application and how that will affect these other 4 variables. Another one would be glazing. Generally speaking, if you're glazing, you're talking about a silicone sealant. So that pretty much eliminates all the non-silicone sealants like polyurethane and hybrid sealants. They're not really meant for glazing applications. So if you're wanting to glaze and going directly to glass, then you should be using a silicone. And then from there, you can make determinations within that group of silicones, what type of product or what type of warranty duration, adhesion, movement class if you think that's important. But you need to be able to first determine what is the classification of sealants that you've got. And there's other special circumstances as well. Self-leveling for a horizontal sealant. You've got a horizontal application. You want a tough sealant, so you're not going to be trying to get low modulus if you want a tough sealant on a walkway. You're going to sacrifice movement capability in order to get toughness. So when you get into these special uses, then you need to do what I call special considerations, okay? So think about the use think about the considerations that you need to be taking into account with these special uses. The final thing that you need to be aware of is that when you're doing a product selection, you need to take a step back and think in terms of what other variables or factors may come into play. A classic one gets into this horizontal application. What if it's highly sloped? If it's highly sloped, the self-leveling isn't going to work, and even what they call semi-self-leveling isn't necessarily going to work. Okay, so you may have to go to a non-sag sealant and find something that's very tough that's non-sag in order to accommodate that use. Another application with horizontal is you want to bring it up so it's not a tripping hazard, but you've got forklift tire traffic going over the top. You can't put a control joint filler in there because let's say it's an exterior application, it's exposed to thermal change. So you do have to consider movement, you do have to consider adhesion, you don't need to worry about paintability. Warranty, I don't think it's going to come into play, but you just need something that's going to be able to perform. And so maybe it's not going to be a joint sealant, but that application might be a preformed joint that is made out of a tough rubber that can tolerate that exposure to the wheel traffic from the forklift or what have you. Okay? So, bottom line is, these are 5 main categories. I'm sure other people could come up with different ones or try to split this one out into several depending upon the special uses, but you can cover pretty much anything you need to regarding joint sealants by using this list, and then you've narrowed that specification down only to the applications that are relevant to your project rather than trying to hit everything under the sun in your specification, because all it does is create confusion, in my opinion, and potentially some misleading applications or applications where the wrong product gets used. Okay? I hope this has been useful for you and look forward to more videos in the future. Thank you.